The Raiders found a way to make history yesterday, but not in a good way. This is what happens in Vegas. Let's talk about it. All right, welcome to What Happens in Vegas. I am your host, Neil Maligno. I appreciate you for joining me as always. We are going to talk today about the Thursday night football game between the Raiders and the Rams, which, if you know, which you do know, this was a tragic one. This was a terrible game. It ended terribly. It didn't start bad. The first half was good football. The second half, not so great. Not so great. Listen, Raider fans, I know you guys are frustrated. I know you're emotional. I know you're upset. You can't possibly be happy. And it is what it is, right? Like, this has happened all year long. As crazy as we think the last loss is, the next loss just one ups it. It's unbelievable, honestly, at this point. The Raiders just continue to surprise us, shock us, disappoint us, depress us, and all those things. I literally see Raider fans saying they were crying or they had their family upset. They were flipping out, doing all this crazy stuff. And I get it. Like, it's frustrating at this point. And it's not just like a losing season for a football team. This is like a decade of a losing team and these ongoing issues and all these things that happen that it feels like doesn't happen to other organizations. Obviously, we're a little biased because we're Raider fans and we're just hyper focused on one organization. So when we lose, that's what we focus on. When a quarterback plays bad, that's what we focus on. Other organizations are obviously experiencing things, not, I can't say similar or exactly the same, but they're experiencing their own negative things as well. The thing is, you want to say it's just another loss, like, right? Like, this happens. This is the National Football League. Losses happen. The thing is, it's not just another loss. Every time the Raiders lose in this kind of fashion, you start to see all these stats and dates and years and all these things dropped, saying that the Raiders are the first to do this since. The Raiders are the first team to play this bad since this. Like, that's what's been happening all season long. All season long. Now, they had a 3-game winning streak coming into this game. You guys know I was super amped going into this game. I was excited, thinking this is a real opportunity to play a not so good football team and come up on a 4-game winning streak. I wasn't even concerned about playoffs. I wasn't even thinking about that. At this point, when we only had 5 wins and 7 losses, I wasn't thinking about playoffs. Honestly, that's really where I wasn't at that point. I was more at, what positives can we take away from this season? What can we build off of? What, can stay for next year? What can change? What needs to go? That's more the angle I was looking at. And I thought the more wins we get, the better we play, the more positive stuff we have to build off of. The worse we play, the more that's really just got to go, or it's got to be changed. And I didn't really want to see that. I don't really want to see, a bunch of things torn down, trying to repair, the situation. However, when you lose like this, again, you get everybody going again. Right now, those people that I talk about week after week who start chanting whenever the Raiders lose,
"Fire Josh McDaniels, trade Derek Carr."
They're back out. They're back out. And it's up to you whether you want to feed into that emotion, whether you want to, be angry, be emotional, be upset, and feed into that. Give those people clicks, give them views, feed their want for your attention by doing this, media play of, I'm just going to feed them negativity. I'm going to feed them what, their inner hatred is going up right now. I'm not going to do that. Once again, we will talk about the bad, but we will do it in a productive way, right? Okay, so we already know the team's not firing Josh McDaniels. So you can stop with the Josh McDaniels stuff. You can stop with the polls and the Twitter tweets and the polls and all these things everywhere. Enough. They're not firing him. So it's a moot point. It's a waste of time to talk about it. It's not happening, right? Mark Davis hired the guy this year. He's started this, plan with Josh McDaniels, the GM, and all these guys. He just came out recently and gave him encouragement, just confidence from Mark Davis that he's not going to fire the guy. So it's not happening. So why create that narrative? Why jump on that content, that type of conversation for what? It's literally pointless. It's literally what if this happened? What if that happened? What could, like, why are we having this conversation? Let's have a real conversation. Now, if you said, Neil, a lot of this is coaching related, I would agree with you. If you said, Neil, maybe the defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, needs to get fired, I would say that's more possible because Josh McDaniels is the head coach and that's who Mark Davis has put his support behind. So I can understand if someone has to be the guy to blame here, someone has to eat that L, someone has to eat that responsibility. and someone pushes that on like a Patrick Graham type of situation, or or a different coach on the defense or whatever it may be, I still don't even think that's going to happen. But I get it if that's where you want to go with a conversation, because that hasn't been crossed off the list. That's something that we can't. It's not going to happen, right? So I understand that conversation. I would entertain it more than the Josh McDaniel conversation. The Derek Carr situation. Derek Carr was bad in this game. There's no way to slice it. I've always been a Derek Carr supporter in terms of I think he's a pretty good quarterback. I don't think he's horrible. At the same time, I don't think he's the greatest, right? Like I don't think that you can compare him to some of the really, really, really top of the line quarterbacks, the ones who just have that weird it factor that change things. I think if you put everything in place for Derek Carr, everything is comfortable, all these weapons, good offensive line blocking, good coaching, that Derek Carr can like get the job done, right? And he's proved that he can. It hasn't been a lot because yet those things haven't all come together for him with the Raiders, but he has proved that if those things happen for the most part, he can handle it. But this team has like a mentality issue right now, which is very clear to me. If you think about it, the Raiders, we keep talking about like they're the first team since 19 whatever, first team since this era that have done these things, right? And that's simply coming down to this team's mentality is not it's not a kill mentality. Like I kind of relate it to when you have kids, right? And you put your kids in sports. Sometimes you notice your kids are like too gentle. They're too like I don't want to say the word soft, but they don't have like that killer instinct, right? Because they're kids. They're just playing with their friends and their teammates, and they're enjoying themselves and they're just having fun, which is great. But you also notice there's certain kids who are like, yo, that kid has a killer instinct. Like that kid really wants to win. That kid is not your friend when that game starts. When it's over, he's shaking your hand. It's all, great, great and happy, jolly stuff. But in between that game starting and ending, he's not the nicest guy because all he cares about is this weird, instinct. Not weird, but this instinct kicks, this primal instinct probably kicks in saying, I'm here to dominate, right? I'm here to win this game. There's no in between. That's all I'm here for. And then after it, we could kick it and laugh and do all that kind of stuff. So that's what it kind of reminds me of with the Raiders is they get into this position where we got this comfortable lead. We're up at the half. And now all of a sudden we're gonna chill. Like we don't have this step your foot on their throat and make sure it's over type of thing yet. They don't have that. Now you can blame everybody for this. I don't go fire Josh McDaniels. It's all his fault. I don't do that. Why? Because it's not just his fault. It's clearly the players' fault as well. It's clearly other coaches' faults as well. It's clearly just an organizational approach to things. This game was over if not for a bunch of stupid penalties, Tillery knocking the ball out of Baker's hands, a pass interference call. It felt like the refs were out to get them. You know what I mean? Some of these things may not have been called by other refs, but they were getting called. It was all stupid. It was stupid stuff. So everything aside, right? Lacking the killer instinct after the half when you're up in this game. Even the Derek Carr interceptions, everything if you just don't do a couple of these stupid penalties. I mean, literally, Max Crosby sacked Baker Mayfield at the end of the game, practically, right? And it was making it very difficult to envision a situation where they would have won that game because of the way that was going. And as soon as he gets the sack, stupid penalty, first down, 15 yards up, all this stuff happens, right? And it gives them life and it gives them an opportunity of hope to believe that hey, this is really possible right now. And so if you just take those couple of things out, the Raiders win this game. That's straight up it. And you can say, well, Neil, those stupid penalties, that's the coach's fault. Okay. If you want to go there, I don't agree with you. I don't agree the coach has to do something to make you not be childish to smack a ball out of a guy's hand. I don't think that's the coach's fault. I'm not going to put that on the coach. Again, you can say, well, if the coaches had things in order, a guy would act that way. People act off emotions. The Ram player acted off emotions earlier in the game too and was trying to push guys around, really hurt his team, put him in a bad position to miss a field goal. So these things happen. This is a high octane, high emotional, high adrenaline sport. This is what happens when you go to battle. This is what happens when you go to war, people. So, and that's figuratively, obviously not being serious about war, but in general, this is what I'm saying. You can blame Josh McDaniels. He's the head coach. He deserves some blame. I'm not going to say fire Josh McDaniels because it's not a realistic conversation. One and two, I just don't think it makes sense. Three, Derek Carr can be blamed. He threw two terrible interceptions. The offense in general played okay, other than the fact that they took their foot off the gas the entire second half, which again you can put on Josh McDaniels. The defense on the flip side did good in the first half. Second half, especially in the fourth quarter, falls apart. I'm putting that on Patrick Graham. I'm putting stupid penalties on players. I'm putting all that. Like if every player played like Max Crosby, you wouldn't lose a game. That's how this basically how this folds, right? Like make smart plays, nonstop effort. The motor never stops, makes plays, not just gets close, not just, is trying. He's literally getting to them. So if everyone was Max Crosby, you wouldn't lose games. If everybody was like Deron Harmon, you wouldn't lose games. If everybody was Denzel Perryman, you wouldn't lose games. But you lose games when guys do stupid stuff. It's just the way this works, right? And that's what happens when players either get emotional or players get overconfident. And going into this game, as a fan, I didn't even think a loss was possible. I honestly didn't. I know every given Sunday, blah, 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 any team can win. That's true. That's true. Clearly, it played out that way. But at the end of the day, I really didn't think it was going to even be possible. I wasn't even concerned. I wasn't even worried about it. Going into the half, I really wasn't worried about it. I'm thinking this is gravy right now. There's nothing to be concerned about. And then it all just falls apart. And that's a real shame. It's a real shame that this played out this way. If you were thinking playoffs, I think you were even more positive than I think because I wasn't thinking playoffs really. I was just more trying to find the most positive outcome in terms of how this team has something to build off of. But as of right now, this team doesn't have much to build off of. I mean, they have a really great offense, I believe. I still believe that. I think that this offense needs to have a culture change, a mentality change, a killer instinct. And I don't know if you put that on, Josh McDaniels fully, or if you start to question some of these players, right? Like the weird thing is if you question Derek Carr, then basically you're saying Devontae Adams isn't going to be there. And if Devontae Adams and Derek Carr aren't going to be there, Josh Jacobs probably won't resign. So you can't really tear this thing down. I think you draft a quarterback, a young quarterback, to take place of Derek Carr, but I don't think you replace him immediately. So I think you definitely start to plan for the future though, and I think the Raiders will do that. That's a smart thing to do for any organization. Josh McDaniels, his Patriot way, has a history of doing that. So I see no reason why the Raiders don't draft a young quarterback. I don't think it's to replace Carr now or this upcoming season, but I think it's a smart thing to do, and I think they will do it. I just think that when you take away Derek Carr, you start to take away a lot of stuff. I don't think Devontae Adams will want to stay. I don't think Josh Jacobs will want to stay. I think you start having issues with all this kind of stuff, and I just don't feel like digging into that bag right now. So there's a mentality change that has to happen, and I don't even think it's Derek Carr's fault. Maybe it's the play calling's fault, right? Like Josh, Josh McDaniels maybe just gets too comfortable and takes the foot off the gas. We can see the amount of targets that go to Devontae Adams at the second half. It was like ridiculous. Like the catches he was making at the beginning of the game, they weren't even like wide open opportunities. He was just that good. And still the opportunities, where'd they go? Where'd they go? That's the kind of ridiculous stuff that happens. And I still don't think it's a fireable offense. I think that the team knows it. If Josh McDaniels doesn't get out of that, he's going to end up fired, like regardless. It doesn't matter. So you don't have to chant for it every single week because we know it's not going to happen right now. But if that keeps happening, it's the only person you're going to be able to point to that is him because Derek Carr doesn't call plays. Josh Jacobs doesn't call plays. Devontae Adams doesn't call plays. At the end of the day, the defense needs to be more reliable. It needs to be more smart. It needs to make better decisions. And you could blame that on the head coach. I mean, on Patrick Graham as well, right? So maybe it's a change there potentially. Who knows? A lot of people are judging the defense after this game and the play calls that they were in at the end of the game, and it's all legitimate. Let me pull up the screen. Let's actually look at this really quick. 16-17, Raiders lose to the Rams. Raiders are now 5-8. Rams are 4-9. Just think about that. Like they had 3 wins going into this game. If we look at Derek Carr, worst game of the season, 11 for 20, 137, 2 interceptions, absolutely horrible game. If you cape for Derek Carr for this game, you're just a liar at this point. It doesn't make sense. I'm not saying career-wise. I'm saying if you cape for him in this game, there's nothing he did good in this game in terms of this stat line. It's just horrible. The interceptions were not like, oh, it wasn't his fault. The ball got tipped, this and that. It didn't even make sense. He couldn't even answer in the post-game press conference what happened, why these interceptions happened. So terrible game from Derek Carr. I'm not going to sit on it. Josh Jacobs, 27 carries, so I don't mind the carries. It's a good workload. Just under 100 yards, basically is 100 yards. 1 touchdown. The average kind of sucks there, obviously. I love that Mac Hollins was getting those plays out of the backfield. Those were great, clearly effective, as you can see here with the stat line. But Jacobs got hurt in the game too, which affected how this team played. This team relies heavily on Josh Jacobs. We've talked about it numerous times. You talk about it every single week, basically, at this point. When Josh Jacobs got hurt, it clearly was affecting him. There's no question about it. He was grimacing. He was grabbing his hand. It was very, very problematic for him, clearly. I don't want to say it's all that, but McDaniels and them definitely went in expecting to be able to lean on Jacobs with the lead. And that injury, I would assume, I think it's safe to assume affected Josh Jacobs' play and therefore affected how the Raiders got some of their first downs and stuff in these situations where it was 4th and 1 and they didn't go for it. I believe that is because they were afraid with Jacobs' injury to take that chance. Let's go to the wide receivers. Devontae Adams, 3 catches, 71 yards. He had the most receiving yards for the entire team. Makes no sense why he has 3 receptions. Why 3? The targets were like 4 targets or 3 targets possibly. I forget what it was, but it wasn't enough. By far, it wasn't enough. It was a joke. This was all first half stats. Terrible. Matt Collins got a little bit involved. Amir Abdullah, Josh Jacobs got a couple of receptions. All that's good. But the Devontae Adams workload, horrible in this game. Made no sense. Again, Raiders went into this thing where we're in the lead. We're in the lead, and we're just gonna play defense and just manage this game enough to hold this team off. That's exactly what they did 100%. And that's why they lost this game. On defense, Nate Hobbs, obviously super active again, looks great out there. Sam Webb, I believe, gave up one of the touchdowns. I forget who gave up the other touchdown. It might have been a Meek, not sure. But it was just ugly. It was just ugly all around. And it's not all their fault. The play calling was horrible. And it's not me saying that. Players saying it, coaches saying it, analysts saying it, everyone's saying it. The play calling made no damn sense at all. So that was, not good. Not good at all. Now, when we talk about this, let's look at some of the tweets we got. Wade Phillips, really unbelievable that the Raiders would be impressed, man, with no deep help and with a 6-point lead. Baker Mayfield said this at the end of the game. If you watched post game, he said he couldn't believe that the Raiders were impressed. It wasn't just a Baker opinion. It's not just a Wade Phillips opinion. It's an everybody opinion. Again, not sure how that happens. That's not on Josh McDaniels, in my opinion. Well, I mean, it is because he's the head coach. Patrick Graham, like, what are you doing, right? Like, you're the one really calling the plays. At some point, somebody has to be like, what the hell are we doing? What's happening here? Josh McDaniels needs to say that. The players need to say that. Everybody needs to say that. And that's what I'm saying. The killer instinct is not there because if it was there, the guys just wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't accept what's happening here. And it's mostly obviously coaches because the players are players and their job is to play and not coach. So, interesting tweet from Wade there. Roger Sherman, in less than a month, the Raiders have been beaten by a head coach who was an ESPN analyst 6 days before the game and a QB who was on a different team 2 days before the game. Baker played no practice with the team, I don't believe, at all. He was on the team for like 48 hours. You can only know the playbook so much in 48 hours. You can only have so much, in common with your receivers and be in sync with your receivers so much. That's why this loss is embarrassing. And it's one thing that the Raiders took their foot off the gas. It's another thing that the defense allowed it. I'm more upset, honestly, at the defense. As crazy as it may sound to some people, because they feel like the offense should have kept pouring it on, which I agree with you. The offense should have kept pouring it on. But Jacobs got hurt. Derek was throwing some interceptions. I don't know. I just feel like the defense really dropped the ball on this one. And there's no other way to explain it. It really came down to that last drive, and they just completely sucked. Nick Wright, the Raiders lost the game to the Cardinals that they led 23-7 with 8:15 left, to the Chiefs and the Jags that they started up 17-0, and to the Rams that they led 16-3 with 3:30 left. Again, this is a Baker Mayfield Rams. And to Jeff Saturday, just a different type of impossible fan torture. That's what it is. That's what it's been. Nick hit it on the head there. Josh DeBoe, Raiders are 0-4 this season when leading by double digits at halftime. They're the first team since at least 1930 to lose 4 times in a season when leading by double digits at the half. This is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about that we're hearing nonstop this year. They keep coming up with stuff like this because the Raiders keep doing things that other teams haven't done in a long time. And so that's why you can't just say, it's just a loss. It's just a loss, Neil. Like, losses happen in the NFL. It's not just a loss if you do something for the first time since 1930. It's not just a loss. It's a little more than just a loss. So got to put a little more gravity on it than it's just a loss. This is, again, just very discouraging overall from this team. It's disappointing. Obviously, we're expecting Hunter Renfrow to come back, Darren Waller to come back, some guys on defense to come back. We'll see how the O-line injuries panned out. But in general, bad game all across the board. Some guys had decent games, but overall, just a bad output, an embarrassment for the organization. Again, I'm not the Fire McDaniels guy. I'm not going to do it. I'm not the trade Derek Carr guy. I bleed silver and black. You start doing that weird rebel revolt crap, and for me, it's not Raider-like. It's not a fan. It's not a true fan. It's not a true supporter. It's not someone who loves what they love. I believe you fight with your squad. You fight with your team. You figure it out. If something can't work and it takes after a season or two, it doesn't work out, then you move on. But right now, it's just too soon. Moving on to me hurts more than it does effective. And I know some people are going to say, you're wrong, and that's fine. Drop it in the comments. We'll discuss it. I love it. Trust me, I love the haters. And I love when fans from other teams come in and talk, talking crap too as well. Totally welcomed. I love it. Bring it. I'm all for it. We'll chop it up together. So it's all good. I don't want to rant too long on this. We'll have another episode again before the next game. Patriots coming to Allegiant Stadium 12/18 Sunday. Josh McDaniels, former team, a couple of players on the team, former team, general managers, former team. There's all the connections in the world here. This would be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Again, if you want to check out, check out. If you don't want to watch no more games, if you don't want to support the team, bounce. It is what it is. Not my style. I'm going to be there every single Sunday, Thursday, Monday, whatever day it is that the Raiders play that week. I'll be there supporting. Again, I bleed silver and black. I'm not going to turn on my squad. I'm not going to try to start an uprising. I'm not going to try to get people fired from their jobs with less than a season in the books. It's just not my style. I have a little more patience than that. And I'm not trying to feed into your anger, feed into your hate, feed into your sadness or whatever it is you're doing right now. I'm trying to uplift you. I'm trying to talk about the positive stuff. I'm trying to be productive, trying to be realistic. I have no reason to do the fear mongering type stuff that other content creators are doing. It's not my thing. I hope you appreciate that. If you're watching this, if you made it this far, I assume you do. If not, maybe you're just hate watching, which is cool too. Again, I appreciate the support either way. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you hit like. Make sure you comment. Again, more than anything, this is about building the Raider Nation community here on YouTube, and it's best when I get to chop it up with you guys and talk about these things and have discussions about the current team, the future of this team, the past. And I'm here for all of it. I want to talk Raiders with you guys. So don't just watch and disappear. Subscribe so we can talk each week about it. If you want to follow on social, I'm at Clock Dodgers on Twitter. And then on Instagram and TikTok, it's at What Happens in Vegas Pod. And again, let me know you listen to the show. When you follow me on one of those platforms, I'll make sure we follow you back. If you don't say it, I might just miss it. There's a lot of notifications and things popping up all over the place, and it's hard to keep track sometimes. But again, here on YouTube, the algorithm wants to see that you're subscribing, wants to see that you're watching all the way through. They want to see that you're supporting and enjoying the content. I hope if we're doing that, please just make sure you subscribe, like, and do those kind of things to help us out. Other than that, guys, again, I will talk to you guys in the comments. I will also talk to you later next week. We'll drop another video leading up to the Patriots game. There should be a lot of narratives and storylines there and updates with the team. Other than that, guys, this is what happens in Vegas, and I'm out.